We're going to pull apart our suspension linkage here and take a look and see how nasty it is in here. If this is well greased or if it's dry, rusty, whatever the case may be. We got to take this, and this out, and we'll get this little triangle piece out and also our links here and take a look at our actual bearings in there. Alrighty, we got those 3 out. We got one more to go in the shock, but it's being blocked by the linkage. So the plan is to knock these bolts out, like that. And of course that won't quite clear that. I'm gonna guess you gotta take the bolt partially out and get it all cattywampus, and then take it rest of the way out. This one's catching on the chain guide on the other side. There we go. A little brute force and come right out. Whoa. All right, I got this bolt out, but I made a flat on the flange part to get it to slide past the brake stay. And voila, there we are. You can see this is pretty dry in there, but it's not bad. So I'm going to take all these to the parts washer and get them all cleaned up. Then we'll lube them and put them back in. I cleaned these up in the parts washer. They come fairly clean. Then I took and used some contact cleaner and cleaned out inside the bearings. Blew it out with very small or very low pressure compressed air to blow them out. And then what I'm ended up with, these bearings all look pretty good. I do have a couple of these shafts, like this one, that look bad, but I really can't feel much of that at all. There's one spot right there that I can feel. And I'm just going to take some Scotch-Brite and kind of go over this and work that down a little bit, especially on the very ends. And what I'm trying to do is get the very high edges off that. I think we caught this in time, but boy, it's just barely in time. Just going to touch up the ends of these a little bit, and that should do it. I don't know if I got that one or not. We'll do it again just in case. Just to knock the edge off those. They get a layer of crusty right where the seal sits. I want to knock as much of that off as possible. This is, once again, the worst one, but I really can't feel anything with my fingernail on there. So we're going to reassemble all this. We're going to do that by packing it full of grease. But I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the end of this rod. Like so. See if we can get some focusing going on here. So I can set this in here into the bearing and then run it around. So I'm getting a good bunch of grease right down inside that bearing and kind of work it into the bearing. Then I'll simply do the other side. This one has a bearing on each side. Grab me a little bit. What are we using here? We're using number 2 Mystic High Temp Multi-Purpose Grease. Not because this is what it calls for, it's because that's what I have in the garage here. Any lube is going to be better than no lube. But hopefully we got somewhere near the right kind of stuff here. Why don't you guys take a minute and comment down below if you have a dirt bike and if you do regular work on the suspension like this. You see what this one's like. Now this, once again, is a 2005 model. But I did put lube in this when it was new. But somehow, in the last 16 years, it's all gone. Can't say as I'm really surprised, but that's kind of the way it is. This one gets the long space that goes through here. This one, and this is the better end of the two, so I'm going to stick it in here first. Now, a bunch of this grease is going to come back out on the other end, but there's going to be a bunch of it that stays in those bearings too. And I'm just going to take this and kind of squish it down in the bolt hole. And I just want to make sure all this is nice and lubed. Kind of like that. I say that a lot, don't I? Kind of like that. Well, it is kind of like that. And then we'll put our bolt in with our newly ground recess. Should slide right in, like so. This is the fatter one of the two, and of course it's going to go in the bigger hole. Sit there like that, take the excess grease off the end, kind of rub it across the ends down through here. Let the bolt push it through. Then we got our other smaller one here. I'm going to run that down in there. Do the same thing, taking the extra grease. And then we got a longer one. This is the one that was actually the worst, and the worst end was this way, so I'm going to put it in the opposite. So the worst end is now on that side. And this is going to sit in here just like this. As soon as I figure out which way it goes. It's going to go that way, and this one come through this way. Like that. This one is going to set up in here like this. He also come through this way because he was catching on the chain guard. That's the wrong bolt. I should have known that was too easy. There it is, over on the far side. Tap that past the chain guard there. It was through this way as well. Only the top one is through the wrong way. Now when we set these nuts on here, we're going to kind of catch the edge of the nut on that grease. So we get grease down in the threads. Oh, we're getting the cart ahead of the horse again, aren't we? We're going to put this one in and tighten it down, and then put the other one up in the way. Click. This one takes a 17 on the other end and a 19 on this end. And crank this one down. It takes just a bit more torque, bigger bolt, what have you. Click. Now we'll put this one back in. Now I'm sure one of these days we'll be working on a bike that these bearings will be bad in, and we'll be replacing those bearings. And it's kind of a pain in the butt to replace them. Click. You don't know what the deal is, but I had the worst luck for ratchets. This is a early model Icon ratchet from the Hazard Freight, and it likes to hang up. When it should ratchet, it just locks up. And strangely enough, I bought a couple of Cobalt ratchets from the Blue Box store, and they do the same thing. I bought a 3/8 and a 1/4 inch of those, and the dadgum things do the same thing. So I'm pretty convinced that they're all made in the same factory. All right, tight, 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 and tight. And that is servicing the suspension linkage on a CRF230. Now, if you're thinking, I don't have a 230, this is pretty much the same on many, many dirt bikes. The pieces are a little bit different, but the process is just about the same. You're going to have linkage under here, and all they're doing is multiplying the movement and minimizing the shock movement. So they can put a smaller shock in here and get a lot more travel out of it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching for this segment of the CRF230. We'll be doing fork seals on this thing before long. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you want to know how to do your rear suspension linkage, that's how it's done on a CRF230 or about any other play bike.